I am Josh Marvin. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. When I was younger, before college, I liked video games, so I thought about doing 3D model and animation for video games, like characters and things like that. And then when I got to college, I found out that I didn't really like 3D modeling as much as I thought I did. Because like what I wanted to do was 3D models and stuff for games, and games have moved in a everything has to look completely immaculately realistic. And for motion graphics, there's so much stylistic things that you could do with it. If you do a show on survivalists in backwoods Alabama, it might not have to look super pitch perfect realistic. It could have rougher texture to it, or it could be blueprinty, different things like that. So it doesn't have the same. There's not the same fear about the time constraints and things like that. In college, the way that the program worked is we were in quarters, and starting between sophomore year and senior year, every other quarter, half of the class would be in class, and then the other half would be doing internships. 3 years, I off and on would do internships at different places, and after I two of my internships I did at Fish Eggs, and then after basically a couple months before we graduated, people were sending out resumes and things like that. And so I just called them up and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be graduating soon. Are you looking for anyone?" And they said they were hiring, so they hired me because I already understood how their company worked because I had interned here. So my favorite part is the initial creative part, um, just because it's fun to get a show pitch. Um, they tell you about the show and what's going to be happening in the show, and then you get to spend time coming up with a bunch of different ways to almost attack it from different sides, whether it's going to be this super crazy idea or this more simplified clean idea or things like that. You get to come up with a lot of different ways to display the same artwork essentially. I feel like one of the more satisfying parts of it is if you put something together and you send it out, and either they come back and they say perfect, send the final, or if they send back and they're like perfect, just change this one, like the red's looking a little pink, can you shift it towards orange, that kind of stuff, where it's just a slight adjustment. That's always satisfying, just to have it come back and it's like, hey, the thing that you did works completely perfectly for the thing that we needed it for. So you don't have to make any changes. Just send out the final version. And that's just something that you have to you have to learn to accept that. That's just the thing that's going to happen. It's not your show. It's not your network. Because essentially, because of the structure, it's network down to the production companies, down to the graphics companies, and sometimes down to you if you're freelancing or something like that. So you have to accept the fact that until you have your own network, and within that network that you own a production company and can go hire out to other graphics companies, and you get to decide what everything looks like. Until you have that authority, you just have to accept that other people are allowed to make those kinds of decisions for you. Spend a ridiculous amount of time looking at tutorials. Tutorials are good for teaching you things that you didn't know. First off, they're good at teaching you a program, but then they're also good at teaching you things that you may not have known about a program. Whether that could be a buried plugin in After Effects that you never knew existed, or you saw it on the list of other plugins and you just never tried it because it didn't sound like what you needed at the time. Um, or there might be presets that would work perfectly and save you a half hour on something that you're trying to do and you don't realize that it's there. In terms of the actual business, sometimes you have to suck it up and just do an internship. Internships, they learn you a lot of things, just things like frame rates, especially if you're going to motion graphics. Things like frame rates, aspect ratios. I didn't even know title safe was a thing until I started doing motion graphics. It's tough because most internships are unpaid, and it's tough to be able to it's hard. It's hard to put aside essentially making money. You're essentially going to hemorrhage money for the entire time that you're doing an internship, but overall, it usually ends up being worth it just because of the amount of information that you learn that you didn't know existed. I mean, the first season of Walking Dead, that intro is perfect. It sets up the entire tone of the show. It's great. I liked the intro to Almost Human. The show's canceled, unfortunately, but the intro to Almost Human was great. There was a lot of effects in the opener. I've never actually watched the show, but the intro to Elementary is great. A lot of shows are starting to move towards. I actually sort of missed the long intro. I feel like people I wonder if people watch Lost, and they were like, oh, you don't have to do a long thing. You can just have the title of the show, and then we're out in like 6 seconds. And they just thought, oh, let's do that, because a lot of shows recently, for some reason, it's a lot of logo resolves rather than title sequences. I thought about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's literally just like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then we move to the thing, and then we're into the show.